Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, some of you might be like,
Continuum.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. Oh, you guys, to quote Mr. Rogers, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood because hopefully you can all tell already that your girl is using her new microphone, and I hope that this sounds so much better. It sounded so much better in my headphones earlier. I was like, oh, please, please, please. Now I just have to keep my head in one spot. I don't know if you guys have noticed, for those of you that watch on YouTube, I am very animated. I use my hands a lot. I move a lot. And that was one thing that when I was working with a podcast producer for the first 8 episodes, he would just give me this look like, stop moving. So I'm trying not to look all around and all of those things because I'm just a very animated person. So I'm trying really hard to just look straight on and keep my mouth right by the microphone. And so hopefully this is so much better. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I also finally have new lighting. And I'm trying. I'm really trying over here. And that was really kind of the whole point when I first started was like, you know what? I'm not going to go to a fancy little producer, I don't even know, office. I'm just going to do this in my living room and you guys can grow with me. And so maybe someday I won't be sitting on this stupid hard stool and having to control all of the elements myself, but here we are. So anyway, I am really excited and I'm praying that this handy dandy little doohickey I got here, that is the technical name for this thing. I actually don't know what it's called. So it is forever now the doohickey. That is apparently automatically controlling my gain settings, which I don't know anything about any of this. And so I just hit a button and it said, hold this, and it'll automatically set that. And I was like, okay, I'm trusting you, doohickey. And then hopefully Faith on her end can fix whatever I mess up. So anyway, thank you all for sticking with me as I have fumbled my way through equipment and all the glitches and setbacks and things of trying to do your own podcast. But I am super excited about today's guest. I'll jump into that here in just a second. But a few little updates is thank you so much for the reviews and comments that I got on last week's 20 episode milestone episode. That meant so much to me. And those of you that, sent me a message and just said, hey, congrats, girl, keep going. Like all of those things just mean the world to me because sometimes you kind of need those little pick-me-ups once in a while. And I know everything comes from within and I don't need outside validation, but let's be honest, sometimes you need a little pick-me-up. And so thank you for those of you who are like cheering me on out there. It really does mean a lot to me. And what means the most to me is when you share something that resonated with you in the episode. If it evoked some sort of emotion or it made you think about something, maybe it unlocked a memory or helped you honor your inner child in some way. Oh, I just got goosebumps. That stuff just absolutely lights me up and lets me know that, okay, this is what you need to be hearing and what I need to be sharing. And because I'm honestly just kind of winging it every week of like what comes out and praying that it's out there, it's there for someone. Someone out there needs this message, right? I know it's not going to land every week with everyone, but I hope it reaches somebody. And so if that somebody is you, I love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for sending those messages. It truly means the world to me because otherwise it's just me, myself, and this microphone. But to follow up from last week. So I realized as I was listening back to the episode, I never actually shared the story about getting the speeding ticket because I I think I shared it in my social media stories or in a post. And so I was like, I didn't actually tell them that I got pulled over on my way to breakfast with my gym buddies. So we were going to breakfast to celebrate my 81-year-old gym friend's birthday. Because he's my bud. And again, I wasn't even gonna be late. I just was so checked out and feeling all the feels like I talked about last week. And so I was not paying attention at all. And so yes, I got pulled over and I was just like done. And I think the police officer could see that on my face, like, oh boy, she is not well. And so I could tell he felt really bad. And he's kind of like, I have to give you something. I'm not gonna say how far I was over. Let's just say it was far enough. And what was funny, you guys? So I rolled down my window in total look of despair and like, I'm just done with this week. And I'm like, gosh, this police officer looks familiar. And I could not figure out because I don't get mingled up with the law often. So I was like, how would I recognize this police officer? And then a little bit later, I was like, oh, so a year ago, I I haven't shared this story. I wrote a post about it a year ago, but I haven't talked about it here on the podcast yet. So, yeah, about a year ago, it was a year ago because it was my buddy's 80th birthday, and he invited me to his birthday party. So I'm there with all of him and his buddies at his house and with his wife, and he introduced me to one of his friends and got talking about how he has this legit Batman costume. And I'm talking like $3,000 put into this costume. Like you would think it was right off of the set of a movie. No joke. And so we got talking and I was telling him like, oh, I dressed up as Wonder Woman for Halloween because why wouldn't I do that at the gym? Just because that's what I do. And so then he goes, you know what? I go to this event. It's this like night out event in this town nearby. And it's all like all the police officers, fire departments, ambulances, all of that kind of stuff. And so the whole community come out to this event. And he's like, if you want to dress up as Wonder Woman and join me, we can be superheroes. I was like, absolutely. Little Tam Tam's like, sign me up for that. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it. Like, let's go. I'm all in. And then, of course, that was, little Tam Tam talking. And then as it's getting closer and closer to this date, my ego is like, what did you just sign up for? Like, you're going to walk around a park with hundreds of people in a Wonder Woman costume. And little Tam Tam's like, yes, she is. And yeah, so I'm getting ready, trying to talk to my ego. I was like, you know what? Just enjoy this. Just be in character. Like, who cares? Who cares? Just go have fun. I'm literally having to give myself a pep talk because my ego was like, you're an idiot. So anyway, I'm starting to get ready. And 2 hours before, no, it was like an hour before I was getting ready, I get a text from this guy. And he says, I am so sorry to have to tell you this, but I'm not going to be able to make it. And I was like, say what? And he said, I have an emergency I have to tend to. I'm so sorry. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, obviously, like, go do what you got to do. And he said, if you don't want to go, don't feel like you have to. So now I'm sitting there, like, what do I do? Because a part of me knows no one's going to know if Wonder Woman doesn't show up. This is not Wonder Woman's event. This is Batman's event. Wonder Woman was just the sidekick. So I was like, no one's going to know if I don't show up. But little Tam knew. And I just like, I couldn't disappoint her. I was like, oh, I said I was going to do this. I need to follow through and do this. So I sucked it up. I got my costume on and I went by myself. And talk about having to get out of your own way and ego and just fully embrace the moment. And that is what I did. And it was such a cool experience. And it was my favorite part of it. I think there was two favorite parts is it was very popular costume with a lot of the older women who kind of grew up in the original Wonder Woman era. You guys, I literally just bought the costume and wore it to the gym. I did not know anything really about Wonder Woman. Apparently, like I was supposed to have a lasso. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, how does she teleport in? What does she do? I should have done my homework and I did not. And especially should have done it before that night because people were asking me things and I was like, oh boy, the sweetest woman. And she was probably, again, maybe like mid, no, 60s maybe. And she's like, can I take a picture with you? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And so I just like fell in love with this woman because she was so sweet. And I could just tell like I was like helping her tap into her inner child because she grew up with Wonder Woman. And so it was really cool. So right then and there, I'm like, okay, that alone made this worth it. And then there was this little girl. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of her. She was like just mesmerized by this Wonder Woman costume and just hanging out with me. And we were just talking about things that she loves to do. And she told me that she loves to draw. And so, we're kind of talking and all this stuff. Well, then she goes off and I'm talking to other kids and taking pictures with them and stuff. And all of a sudden she comes back and she gives me a drawing and it's me and her. And she wrote a little note on there and I still have it hanging up on my door. So I see it every morning because it was just the sweetest little thing. And so I will repost that somewhere if anyone wants to see that post and those pictures because it's super cute and special. But um yeah, so I was like, I'm pretty sure that officer was down at that event. And I was like, dang it, I should have used that as he pulled me over and be like, dude, don't I'm speeding because I have to go save some lives. I just don't have my costume on. I don't think he would have bought that. Maybe he would have remembered. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I wasn't in the mood to pull those kind of shenanigans, but if I would have been, I would have absolutely pulled that card. So the other funny thing is that night, and I will wrap this up because I do have a guest coming. I'm just like feeling air. Oh, there she is. I just saw her pop into the weight room. But the other funny thing about that is my car was doing something funky a year ago. And oh, I'm going to back up because this is like how amazing God and the universe are. And so, oh, maybe I should have told this after because now I'm going to get emotional. So I find out I'm at this event still, right? And now I'm like, I'm in the zone and I'm channeling my Wonder Woman. And I'm still like, I'm hoping and praying that everything is okay with Batman. And I found out probably like half hour before the event was over that his wife had actually died from a heart attack. Like, whoa, whoa. And this was the first time he had ever invited someone to join him, ever. He has done all kinds of events and like throwing out pitches at baseball games. I mean, like, he is well known for what he does. And this was the first time he had ever invited someone to join him. And it was the one time he wasn't able to show up. And it was just like, whoa. So like I was so glad that I showed up. I showed up for little Tam Tam, but I ended up showing up in a different way and, kind of like following through with those superhero duties, to look out for one another. And yeah, incredibly heartbreaking and wow, you just never know, right? And you have to seize the moments and live your life to the fullest and all of those things. So as I got that message, I'm standing in this Wonder Woman costume, just thinking like, I'm so grateful I did this because I'll never get this night back and never have these experiences. And even though I felt like a complete idiot at first getting out of my car, it was like, I was supposed to be here. I was absolutely supposed to be here. It was one of those things like, you got the mission and it was like, follow through with his plan. And yeah, so that was a night I will never, ever, ever forget. And so back to this other part of the story is that I get in my car and my car was doing something funky where it wouldn't shift out of park. And once in a while I would get lucky, but I would just sit in my car and like bang it back and forth and like trying to get, to move into reverse. And sometimes it would take me forever and it was so frustrating. I'd have to like try to pump the brakes and all these things. Well, none of that was working. And I was like, oh my gosh. So here I am sitting in my car in my Wonder Woman costume and my car will not start. I cannot, like it started, but I could not get it out of park. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I pull up my phone, pull up YouTube and try to research like how to get I have a Subaru out of park. And so it gave me this like, I don't know, like take this thing apart and pop this thing open and poke this thing. And I was like, what am I going to do? How do I have any tools here? So I went from Wonder Woman to MacGyver because I found a pen, like popped the little clip off, and unscrewed the pen. I was able to like flip this little thing up and poke this thing, and all of a sudden, boom, your baby's in reverse, and we are flying home. So it was just the craziest night. But anyway, that is how I recognized that police officer. So a very long story there. But also, I was not going to share this with you guys, but I am just all about being open and vulnerable and sharing the things because I had thought, like, okay, I learned my lesson. I slowed down. I had to pull over, and all of those things helped me, kind of settle into some different energy. And it certainly helped to kind of help snap me out of it and all of those things. Well, then we're going home to my parents. My niece was getting married last weekend, and my kids were in the wedding. And so we had wedding rehearsal to get back to, and it was supposed to be at 5 o'clock. And I know things back there or just anywhere, like it's not going to start exactly at 5, right? But my ego is like, you better hurry up. You don't want them waiting on you. You don't want to be a burden and all of these things. And so kids and I were like, we're pushing it. And not anticipating that I needed to get gas. So we had to stop and get gas. And so I was like, we got to go. And I'm coming out of this town, this small little town, and apparently just gunned it. You guys, I got pulled over again. I got the speeding ticket on Wednesday. This is Friday. I was like, oh my gosh, you want to see panic? And I don't even know how to describe the feelings that were going through me because I was just like, wow, Tami, you really effed up this time. What are you doing? Like, what is the point? Where people could have waited. Like, what are you rushing for? Right. And I'm like, obviously, I always take things like this into the bigger picture. And I hope that you do too. Is like, what are we so in a hurry for? What is so important that we can't wait a few minutes? Right. And I wasn't like speeding obnoxiously because I was literally just coming out of town, but I apparently gunned it. Just get up to speed. And he was right there on me. And I'm just, and now I have the kids in the car. So like, great example, mom. And so I'm talking to them and I have my head in my hands, like, oh my gosh, because there's no way I'm getting out of this now, right? And I'm just thinking about my points on my license and all of these things. And I will admit, like, I have told people, like, I'm a safe, but I am also an aggressive driver. But I feel like I'm a safe driver. And you guys are like, no, you're not. But yeah, I was praying real hard, real hard. And like, there's no way I'm getting out of this. And this is not going to end well. And all of a sudden, he comes back and he's like, well, it looks like you have a pretty clean driving record. I don't see any tickets on there. So I'll send you on your way and you guys, make it back safely to that wedding rehearsal. And I was just like, what? What? Excuse me, what? Obviously wasn't going to question him and be like, wait a second, did you not see the ticket that I just got on Wednesday? I was like, so I looked back at the kids and was like, kids, this is a miracle. This may be not a great example of a miracle, but this is a miracle. And this is God in the universe saying, like, Tami, this was your last warning. Like, did you receive the message? You got to slow down in life. There is nothing worth rushing for. And I was like, I officially got the message. Like, they let me off the hook. I could not believe that. So I don't know if that officer that I met on Wednesday was behind on his paperwork. I have no idea how that happened. Or if this guy saw it and was like, oh boy, and then saw the look. I have no idea. I'm not going to question it. I received the message. And ever since then, I have been abiding by the law and driving the speed limit. So there's my little story for you, a little background on that. And yeah, so there you go. But my other exciting news is, you guys, oh my gosh. So next week's guest, I could not believe this. I could not believe this guest agreed to come on. I thought for sure, I'm like, oh, that's not going to happen. But I was still holding out hope. So my daughter comes up to me last night and she's like, I decided I want to be on the podcast. I was like, well, I was trying to play cool. I was trying to be cool, but I was not cool at all. I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like, really? Are you sure? And here's what she says. She's like, yeah, I realized that my ego was the one telling me that I didn't want to do it when deep down I really did. I was like, oh, Aria, this is exactly why because she gets it. She gets it, and she's already able to decipher between what is ego and like what is her actual honest, true self thoughts. I was like, this is going to be amazing. So I cannot wait for you guys to hear from my daughter because, like I've said many, many times, she is my greatest teacher. And I think it's going to be so helpful, hopefully, for parents to be able to hear from a kiddo perspective on all of this. So get ready for Aria. I was gonna tease you guys, but I'm like, I can't tease you. So I just want you to get excited too. But anyway, my guest for today is here. I see her in the waiting room, and I'm excited to welcome back my dearest friend Zoe. And I know so many of you watched episode 2 with her. If you have not watched that, certainly go back because it was a good one. And yeah, I just love this woman so much. But man, summer has been crazy and we've kind of been like two ships passing in the night. And she's had a lot of life and a lot of things happen. And so it just felt like a good time to reconnect. And since she was my first guest, I thought after, this 20, like we're gonna bring her back and check in. And so I will be right back. I'm gonna let Zoe in here and we will get rocking and rolling. All right. I am back with my dear friend Zoe. Hi.
Hi.
So, like I had mentioned in the intro, Zoe's had some life happen, and I thought I would have her share with where she's at because she's not in her normal environment right now and dealing with some stuff. And yeah, it was kind of one of those things where like, yeah, this probably isn't a great time to record a podcast, but we're also just very much into sharing our experiences and moving through it. And so here you are sharing your light and gift, even though you're going through it. So,
Yeah, sometimes that's a beautiful time to share as well because, everybody's going through stuff. So you can't just stop everything. You still have to do the stuff. So,
yeah,
yeah, I'm currently right now I'm in a hospital. I'm healthy and fine. But I had to come back to my home, I guess, home area. It's about 10 hours from where I live, as my grandfather is palliative at the moment. And so I've been spending my time at the hospital with him, spend my nights with him to give my mom a bit of a reprieve and be here for my mom. So it's been, it's been, a little heavy emotionally and, but, uh, yeah, it's weird to say a beautiful experience at the same time. I've spent
yeah,
some grandfather is quite coherent at times, and we've spent some pretty special moments. Um, but it's interesting when some tough things happen in life that I've been finding it interesting just watching people and seeing how everybody
yeah,
reacts, responds in this situation, and how you can see how their life experiences
yeah,
has come into play um, through this whole session. So it's been kind of
yeah,
interesting in that aspect for me. So, but I guess to make a long story short, I'm not in
yeah.
my nice healing room today. I'm in a little meeting room at the hospital.
But you're
Um,
still helping people heal, especially your grandfather. And as we were talking, it made me think of like how many people and listeners have maybe gone through this situation where they're having to be there for someone.
mhm,
And,
yeah.
but also all of the other dynamics that happen. Like this is a very triggering moment for
Mhm.
everyone. And like I said, when we get triggered, wow. And this is where it's like, gosh, if we could heal, we could support each other much better in situations like this, because this is where people can really clash. This is when feelings can get hurt. This is when we say things that we're going to regret. This is when maybe we're not even able to show up because of our own blocks.
Oh my gosh, you're hitting all the things and you're seeing it. Some people, the greed sets in. You're seeing people have their own opinion on how things
Yeah.
should be handled. My grandfather's had this girlfriend because my grandma had passed about 14 years ago, and then he met a woman, and she's been in his life for 11 years. But she got in a car accident. She was in the hospital. She was like down the hallway and she
Yeah.
wouldn't come.
Mm.
And so, for us, we're like, but he's dying. Like he needs you to be by your side. But then for me, I have to sit back and go, okay, I don't
Yeah.
know her history. I don't know what this is bringing up for her. She's already lost a husband to cancer. And,
Oh, so triggering.
it
Ooh.
could be bringing up, maybe she can't. Maybe she physically can't actually bring herself to be by his side. So you try to release judgment and just try to meet people where they are and not
Yeah.
have that. And I feel like for me, just of who I am, I'm able to kind of bring everybody down and have a different perspective because people are getting really upset with that situation, like she's not here. How dare she, like it can be, yeah. So it's funny that you had mentioned that specifically, but it really does.
Yeah.
Everybody shows up in a certain way and um, it brings out all kinds of wounds and
Well, yeah.
yeah.
And, you and I have talked about projections, and I did a whole episode on projections. And
Mm.
wow, again, this is a time where we
Oh,
really throw them out without realizing it. And so, again, when you think about like, well, this is best and this is best, like, well, that's your perception and that's through your lens. But like, thank goodness that you are able to be there and to hold space for all of this happening
mhm,
and to be able to see with your grandfather's girlfriend of like, oh my gosh, like how blocked maybe her heart is and how triggering this may be for her because she has lost somebody. But if you're only seeing it through this one little lens, it does seem
mhm,
incredibly selfish. It does seem incredibly like, what? Or people
yeah,
can't understand that. And again, this is where feelings would get hurt. And that's something you can carry for your entire life. I can't believe so and so never came to that. When
yeah,
really you have no idea like how much deep down inside she probably wishes she could, but that pain is so much that there is a massive wall there. And it's something like it's so hard to understand
yeah,
until you're in it.
mhm,
Oh,
yeah,
well, I'm
yeah,
gonna send her some love and healing too.
yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we had also, and you had mentioned too that this in so many of the episodes, I think it's really what this whole podcast is about is again finding the gift in the painful package and all of those kinds of things. And you had said like this has been in a way kind of a beautiful experience, even though it's obviously a very hard experience. And so
Mhm,
share a little bit about what that has meant for you and like the role that you've been able to play and just like being there,
mhm.
whether it's for your mom, but also for your grandfather and the time that you are getting to spend with him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I came initially to support my mom because there's a lot on her plate. And so I thought, well, if I can just be there for her support. And it turns out me being here became so much more, became so
Yeah.
purposeful. You can see being able to advocate for my grandfather, being able to kind of be his voice in a way. And my brother said something to me. He said, I don't know how you're doing this because I'm by his side and my grandfather breaks down and my brother's just like, I can't, like it's too much. And I said, we all have different, I don't know, gifts or things, but for me, I feel like I'm here because I'm supposed to help him pass. I'm supposed to help him transition. And I like it's a neutrality to it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm not sure why or how I'm feeling or how I'm doing it, but it just is. It feels so purposeful. And so for
Yeah.
me, I see beauty in that and gratitude of being able to be that and
Right.
be there for him. Um, and I just have this ability to be able to help him communicate his needs or he feels comfortable maybe because I'm just so
Yes. Yeah. A very grounding, healing
grounded
presence.
kind of
Yeah.
energy. And so, it maybe because I'm a little, it's not like my mom, it's way more. I mean, he's been there, they've been neighbors,
Yeah.
he's her buddy, so it's extra, right, for her. And so it's harder to kind of pull away look at a different picture. So I think maybe I have that ability to do it. So it's, yeah, it's been kind of beautiful. And like I said, we have these little moments where he just is sharing like this sucks, and we're able to
Yeah.
just feel the feels together. And it's kind of weird to say healing when you're on,
Right.
you're transitioning, but there's still some
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
like it's kind of a, I don't know, it's been a cool learning experience in a way. I don't want to use the word cool, but interesting learning experience would be a better word maybe.
We know
Uh,
what you mean. We know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
So when my eyes were bugging out of my head just now, and again, those of you listening did not see that, but I had like my massive download of like, oh, so when I was bringing Zoe on, I was kind of telling her what I said in the intro. I'm like, I just went on this huge tangent about my speeding ticket and then how I was Wonder Woman. And I said, I have no idea. Like maybe I just need to cut that all out because I don't know how it's going to pertain to what we're going to talk about. And then it hit me because I almost didn't share this part. And then I was like, no, I had the little ping. I like shared this other part of that story. And it was how I was invited, the only person who's ever been invited to this event with Batman, and he couldn't
mm,
show up because his wife died. And I was supposed to be there. Like,
yeah,
so when you said that, I was like, same reason that like you are supposed to be there right now. Like, there's a reason that you are there to be this presence for your family and to be able to give him this gift as well because like you said like you've learned some things and you had really special moments with him and being able to advocate for him because you're intuitive and just know how to yeah.
yeah.
So how have you been able to support yourself
Hmm.
energetically throughout this? Because again, I know there's a lot of people listening that have been in your shoes and been that person and probably find themselves completely drained or they're not able to like process it themselves or feel any of the feels in the moment because they're in it. Like, how are you
Yeah.
doing that?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, I allow myself to feel the feels.
Yeah,
So
number one.
that's number one. I don't bottle it up. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not a super emotional person, but I I don't feel this need to, I have to stay strong for,
Yes. Ooh.
can't cry in front of my grandfather because it makes him sad. Like there's something beautiful that happens when we break down together. It almost gives me
Yes.
permission at the
I was
same
just
time.
gonna say yes.
Yeah, because he is the epitome, like he's 92. He's been living on his own his whole life. He is strong. He is proud.
Mm,
You know, he's just, when you think strong man, that old school. And so for him
yeah.
to show emotions is not something that you take
Yeah.
lightly. And so when
Mm.
I kind of feel the feels, then it allows him. So not doing any favors by bottling things
Right.
up, being this like, you know,
Yes. And like if we could highlight this episode right now is when you allow yourself to feel your feelings, you give permission for other people to do the same.
yeah,
And you make it a safe space to do that. But you're not doing anyone any favors by trying to be the strong one and
no,
suppress it. It's going to hurt you and it suppresses everything. It suppresses everyone. It suppresses the energy around you when you're making
yeah,
it this beautiful thing because you're allowing the emotion to flow.
yeah.
Oh,
So I would say that's my number one, is just like
yeah.
allowing myself to meet myself where I am. And
Yes.
I need to step out and then I step out. But I do, of course, a lot of grounding things for me. The water is everything. So I go back to my parents' place, who they live on a lake, jump in the
Mhm.
water, I swim, I just kind of float and
Yeah.
allow clear my energy, and it refuels me. So it's finding that one little thing that grounds me, but also kind of fills me up all at the same time.
Right.
Um, so whatever that is for people, for me, that's the water, and
Yeah.
that my way I kind of keep myself um in a good space.
Yeah. So I kind of touched on this a little bit last week when I was kind of going through a little funk and I had said like I could have gone paddleboarding, but I couldn't just like pick up and go paddleboarding in the middle of my day or I mean sometimes I can, but so as an example, like if you're not able to do that and you're at the hospital for a long time, like are you doing like in that moment? Like you're feeling your feels, but is there anything like in this moment, how can I help myself ground? What could I do? I feel I feel like it actually goes back to our episode 2 where like, get outside.
Well, I was just gonna say, I actually did
Go
go
for it.
outside, and this is a smaller hospital, and it's a really nice area, and I did,
Yeah.
I there's a really nice grassy area, and I took my shoes off, and I stood in the grass. Of course, I made sure it was safe, but it's very clean here, so I had that ability to just even go outside. You don't have to take your shoes off, but just going outside and
Yeah.
in that big breath, and if the sun's shining, and let the sun just, like, I
Feels
don't
good.
know, that just allowing that energy, but just going outside is for the easiest way,
Yeah.
to ground. There's all kinds of other little more
Yeah.
different ways, more meditative ways that you can do it with intention, but that's the easiest, and that's what I've been doing, is just stepping outside every now and then and
Yeah.
some big breaths of fresh air.
Well, and I love that because I think this is just important, like energetic hygiene, right? And we think about just our
Mhm.
everyday stuff, but it's like, whoa, now it's like real heavy and you're really in it. And I think this is where you have to be even more intentional. And I remember after my father-in-law had passed, again, that was just like it was all intuitive stuff. And that was, I think, the real start of kind of my spiritual awakening was in all of that.
Wow.
And just like when I really felt guided and supported, because in that situation in the past, I would have completely abandoned everything that supported me, right? Because I had to support everybody else. I had to be there for everybody else. So I probably wouldn't have been working out. I would have not been eating right or like all of the physical things. And
Mm,
and that was the summer of coming up with my non-negotiables. Again, I didn't realize it until after the fact, but I was like, how did I get through that summer? And really what it was this is like way off topic, but it's not, is every 16 weeks, like through the supplement company that I use, I take progress pictures, right? And so I had taken them right before he passed. And so then the summer went on. So I was taking them at the end of August. And I remember like seeing those pictures and I was like, well, how the hell did that happen? Because there was like a very noticeable difference in my body composition. And I wasn't trying at all. If anything, it should have been the complete opposite. And I think that's what kind of got my attention of like, how the hell did that happen? Because normally
mm,
you would have been emotionally binge eating. You would have gained, easily 10 pounds, if not 20 within that time, that 4-month period. I mean, it was like old Tammy wasn't there anymore. I was like, what just happened? So I kind of sat with that. I'm like, what was I doing? And it was that. I was like, I was finally for once like pouring into me
yeah.
first. So then that overflow went out. So I was making sure that now I get it. I was running outside because that was the only option I had there. So I would do that early in the morning. So I wasn't bothering anybody else. I could get it in without feeling guilty about stepping away. But that was like, I knew that I needed to do that.
Mhm.
And again, that was 2017, like, which is crazy to me. That was 7 years ago. And how much
Wow.
has changed. But like, that was truly the start of all of this. And I didn't know then that getting outside and just moving my body, like, it wasn't about exercise at that point, right? I didn't know that then. I was just so used to doing that I wanted to keep that habit and routine. But really what I was doing was clearing energy.
Clearing energy,
But
yeah.
I felt really connected to him on those
Mm,
runs. Like it was good for every aspect of me. But I had like before we had left, because we were from Wisconsin to Minnesota. And that night, as we found out, I had like, packed my running shoes. I had thrown in my shakes, not even thinking. Right. So it was already just like this
oh,
lifestyle, but
yeah.
I didn't even realize like, oh my gosh, I was supporting myself and I didn't even know it.
Mm,
And that was how I got through that. And so there were just things that I was doing that I didn't even realize how important they really were. But if we can help people, like, this is not the time to let the wheels fall off on your self-care.
right.
Like, this is when you need it most because then you can show up for everybody else. But the last thing people need is for you to be falling apart because you're not taking care of yourself. And
Mm,
that is often what happens is
yeah.
physically, then we start to feel it. mentally we start to feel it. Emotionally, we maybe aren't
Mm.
allowing ourselves to feel it, but certainly coming out in other ways.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes,
just
and
being
and that is
intentional.
definitely something that I've been doing, my water intake, and I use the stairs. There's 65 steps. So if we do that a few times, you're getting a
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
so just moving my body, all those things that are important for me. So and like you say, I've heard now I feel like it's just second nature, but it is important to keep that. I do the stairs on purpose, and I do
Right.
make sure to drink my water on purpose. That is pouring into me. That is
Yeah.
making sure that I'm still doing all the stuff.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I think the other part of this is kind of what I wanted to come back to was if we're not doing those things, how that like bogs us
Mm.
down energetically. And that was, you talked about your grandfather's girlfriend. And I just like, I can just see, I wish when you were talking about that, I had like all the feels. I just saw like this heart chakra just closed up.
Yes. Yeah.
And it makes sense, right? Because I'm sure losing her first husband wasn't the only time that her heart was hurt,
Oh, yeah.
but that was a trigger. And now this is a trigger. And so, but when our heart is closed, it prevents us from being able to give love the way we want. It blocks us from being able to receive the love that we need. And so that was something that we kind of wanted to touch on today, too. I mean, this could literally be like a series of episodes on this. We could go through like each energy center and talk
I
about it.
am seriously,
But
yeah.
I know we both have some stories in regards to when you can see that those things are blocked. And if we're not doing this energetic work to clear that, it
Mhm.
really does weigh you down. And I know people, you sometimes we feel feels heavy, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we had talked in episode 2 about like just getting outside, like you just feel lighter, right? You
Yeah.
didn't just magically lose 10 pounds, but for some reason it feels lighter. And that is what we're talking about. But when we're not clearing that, it blocks like everything. And so I don't know if you want to kind of go start on a little chakra tangent and how we notice those things are blocked and what you're, maybe seeing with what you're going through
Well,
now and how
yeah,
those things are blocked.
for sure, particularly, for example, the throat chakra, my mom, she has never had a very open throat chakra, and so
Yeah.
she shuts it down, so she has a hard time being assertive or
Yeah.
expressing, and she has the power of attorney here, and she needs to be able to stand up and
Ah,
say, "This is how it's gonna go," but she's gotta work against family, she's gotta, the
yeah.
nursing, doctors, she's gotta be able to stand in that, so that's also her solar
I was
plexus,
just gonna
which
say solar plexus too, like your personal
it
power
goes
and
hand in hand. She's a people pleaser, so she falls into like, "Oh, well, the doctor said this or the nurse," and so you can see how that blocks where my uncle, it's blocked in another way where he is very vocal, but comes off
yeah. Maybe it's not
maybe
coming
not
from his
so
heart because maybe his heart is blocked, so it's coming out a different
well,
way.
then, the words come out maybe not so
Harsh.
nicely,
Yeah.
very harsh. He's saying things that he doesn't really mean. So you can see how, and they have, I mean, it's a similar childhood, but they have
Yes.
different trauma, with similar traumas, and it started right at childhood,
Yeah.
and it never really been healed or cleared, and so now you see it when it, manifests when you're in
Yep.
these
Here we are as an adults.
situations,
Yep.
especially in adults and these hard situations, it's really, really evident. And, for me and for you, Tami, I know when we see this, I'm just like, just
Yeah.
seeing it all. It's like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness.
Yeah, it's like the Matrix, so you can link it all back
You're
and
like,
you can see all of it like, "Oh."
all of it, all of it.
Yeah.
And so i- in this situation, yeah, I've just really been seeing it all and trying to kind of help navigate people through it, and helping my uncle to come down a couple of notches, and then helping my mom open it
Yeah,
up so she can speak up. But you really see how, as kids, it starts right from day one, whether
absolutely.
it from traumatic stuff, or it could be just unmet emotional needs or
Yeah.
negative conditioning. I mean, it could be so many things, but it starts
Yeah. Well,
from
and
childhood.
to go way back to childhood and like those like first chakras. And like that first one, that root is all about
Oh,
safety,
right?
right? And
Yeah.
safety in a lot of different ways. Safety in terms of, I think back to Corby's episode, like that dude wasn't even safe in his mother's womb, and
Right.
then comes out and still isn't safe. I mean, some of us, like you were born, you had a roof over your head, you had food on the table, there
Yeah.
was money coming in, you had that kind of like safety in your physical world. But again,
Yeah.
if you are walking on eggshells, that doesn't feel emotionally safe for a kid. And I want to find this video. It was on, I think I saw it on Instagram. It was this study they were doing, and it was this baby that was probably, gosh, I don't know, was able to like sit up maybe like 6 months. I don't think it was quite a year. Anyway, they had brought in this box for this baby to explore with. And, neutral environment, but they brought in the box and this baby's just like getting after it and is super curious. And, goosebumps. And it was just super curious, right? And
Yeah.
adventurous and getting in there and playful as babies should, right? Well, then they bring in somebody whose energy just changes, right? And so it's not engaging with the baby. This person is talking off camera, but in a very kind of stern,
Oh,
aggressive,
wow.
angry tone. And so they hand the box back to the baby. The baby could not focus on the box. It just kept looking off at this person and
Oh,
oh my God, I'm getting
oh
so
my
many chills
gosh.
right now.
Yeah.
Like this baby was so preoccupied with this person and the energy. This was a baby that could not focus on a toy and being playful and creative. And that was just gone. And all that kid could focus on. So it's like when we think about, yeah, your kids may not be able to hear you all the time, but they pick up on your energy. And even if that baby couldn't have like heard all of that, like we have to be mindful. It's
Mm.
where you have to like talk through things and process through things. And it's not to like completely hide that stuff. You can still show what it's like to, you know, have an argument, but like show the process, right, of conflict resolution and all of those things. And then I
Right.
talked last week about talking to Arlo and validating his experience. Like, yeah, you're right. Like Aria and I kind of got into it, but this is what happened, and you were right. And validating that from was huge because it's not like you're not. No one's living in a perfect environment where you're never going to have that. But when you can be really mindful of that emotional stability and the energy that we emit, positive or negative, matters at such a young age. And so right there, it's like that kid's little root chakra could be
Yep.
blocked because he doesn't feel safe emotionally. Like, I don't know what this person's going to do. And it was so wild to see it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's interesting you bring up the root chakra because in one of our really tough moments with my grandpa and my mom kind of opened up and was thanking him for, being her rock. And she said, you're my safety. And you can see in this moment, her story is interesting, but you can see in the moment right now, where her safety feels like it's being threatened
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
passing. Sh My grandmother, she's a beautiful woman, but she was quite unstable, and so she was abusive, and so when my grandfather would be home, my mom would feel safe. And so
Oh,
it was always her safety, and she was saying how she used to have these dreams, and she'd be in a tunnel or a maze, and she'd be panicking because she couldn't find my grandfather,
oh,
and then and she would find him, and then she'd be like, "Okay, I'm safe, he's here." And she would have these reoccurring dreams. So that her root chakra, you know, um, was pretty rock, but my grandfather was her security.
yeah.
And when he was around, she felt safe. But when he wasn't around, she was super,
Right.
not feeling. She was unstable and her energy would be like she would go into hiding and like,
Mm.
all the things.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think that's where, again, at some point at that age, obviously, you don't know how to find that within. But as
No.
adults, like this is the whole
Right.
point is that we can't find that stuff outside of ourselves. You can have sources of it, absolutely, but you have to find it within yourself. You have to find that emotional safety within yourself, right? And yeah, without it, you're right. You become very up and down.
Mhm. And
Oh,
that's the beauty of awareness is being able to share that with our
yeah.
children, when we're
Yes.
seeing that because my youngest, it's a very stable home, but
Yep.
there's always things, and
Yep.
that might shake that.
Right.
Doesn't take much,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's being aware of that and then being able, like you were saying with Arlo and Aria, you have those conversations,
Yeah.
validating those feelings and then teaching them for it to come from within. It's
Yes.
gotta be within. Yes, people can help
Hmm.
and provide you that support, but you gotta have that within and you gotta learn that and build that and that makes all the difference because I know when my grandfather really passes, my mother's gonna be, of course, sad, but I think it's really gonna shake her foundation because
Yeah.
has been her whole life. That has been her stability, and it's never been from within. She never really
Yeah. Well, and
had.
who knows? Like maybe this is one of those gifts in a
Mhm.
painful package. Is this is her opportunity to go within and to find that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this is the time. And sometimes that's what can come from experiences like this is you can find the gift in it. And I found so many gifts in losing my father-in-law. So many gifts. And so
Yeah.
like yes, that loss was incredibly painful, but to be able to see like how again you can find some of those lessons and blessings and gifts and all of that, it feels like, okay, like it wasn't all
Yeah.
had to be a painful experience, right? Like you can find the gifts in those things. But yeah, it doesn't mean that it's easy or like
No, it doesn't mean it
make
is
you feel all
easy,
warm and
but
fuzzy inside. But when you're like, okay, like this is time for me to do this work and to go within and yeah.
yeah.
But you can always choose other paths, right? And that goes to our next one is her sacral chakra, which is all about being able to feel the feels. And so if you are suppressing all of that, either going through the process where you're at right now or when someone passes, if you're suppressing that, again, that's going to manifest in likely physical symptoms through your body, or you're going to be the boiling pot that boils
Yeah.
over in very inconvenient times, or all kinds of stuff can happen. But yeah, I think so many people, like you said, like got to be that strong person. And so they don't allow
Yeah.
themselves to actually feel their feelings about it. And so many people say, like, I never cried, or they maybe cried at a funeral or something like that. And it was like
Right.
the one time, or, on a retreat, one of them had shared a story about a cousin that was really close to that passed and didn't allow herself to cry.
Right.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
was like, because she kind of felt like I think she was expecting at that time. And so felt like I gotta be strong and now, like, realizing many, many years later how much she really needed to cry and really needed to feel that to move through it.
Yeah.
So I hope that's a lesson or message that everyone gets here is those feelings will come back up at some
They
point.
will come back up, and I see that with my oldest brother who's like this bomb already waiting to explode, he doesn't show that emotion, but then it comes out in rage, right? So
Yeah.
and it's unhealthy way of expressing your emotions when you bury, and then boom, you know?
Yep.
So it's
And that's
yes.
so this is where I just find like ego, I'm like, "Argh!" Because ego's
Mm,
like, well, I'm trying to protect you from feeling these feelings, but yet eventually it's going to make everything worse and make the
mhm,
situation that much worse and that much harder, not only for
yeah,
them, but for everybody else.
that's right. Yeah,
And so it's like, it's like sitting through that like discomfort in the moment.
yeah.
And this was something even just the other night, Ari and I were talking, and her and her dad love to play like Mario Karts and video games before she goes to bed. Like that's kind of their little thing.
Mhm,
And if there's like a moment where he's like super tired and goes to bed and then, she goes down, there's like, oh, he's already sleeping, and like maybe he feels sad about that. And I was like, well, maybe you just need to say something to him and be like, hey,
yeah.
I really want to play tonight. Can you let me know before you go to bed? I could see it already. Like she got real, like, I can't do that.
Mm,
And
right.
I was like, I guarantee you he would be much happier by you telling him that versus finding out later that you were sad or disappointed.
Hey,
So it's like, just, you got to say something in the moment. But she has picked up on my people pleaser. And so we're already trying to undo that. But it was like to sit in that discomfort. She was like, I can't do that in the moment. But it's like, but look how much, because now you're talking about it nights later. Like you've still been carrying that,
hey,
and that could be something. I said, I'm like, this is the time, this is the person to practice with because your dad loves you unconditionally. This is the person to practice with because eventually someday you might get in a relationship and you're going to need to be able to speak up for your needs and for your wants and be okay with that. But like, this is the person to practice with. But it was already like,
mhm.
oh, I can't say that to my dad. Like, oh no, 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 no. So we're working on that. But yeah, you can already see like some of that
Yeah.
stuff coming through. Like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, that's such a scary one as a mom with little girls when they can't
Mhm.
even tell their dads that,
Yeah.
you know, or express themselves. And it's terrifying because they're like, man, you can't do it if you can't do it with this person who's
Yeah.
so safe.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know where it led for me. You know,
Exactly.
went into
Exactly.
a good place, never being able to stand up and express. And it took me down a really unfortunate path. And so for me, I'm the same way with Kalia and Jose was a bit of a different story, but I should say actually she had a hard time standing in her. It was interesting with her because it was a very different time because I was a single mom at that time with my older two, and she went into this protective mode, which
Yeah.
created other issues. But she was very much like, I am not gonna let anybody walk all over me like
Yeah.
what's happened to
Because she
me.
saw, right?
She saw it, so she learned in
Yeah.
a different way, and so she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, heck no, I'm not," It's interesting, right? It can go other
Yeah.
way where it will kinda go more like, "Oh," she's more like getting to be more like me, so I'm like, "No, you gotta stand up and be able to express and feel safe and okay with being able to stand up and just say what you want, and
Yeah.
it's okay, what you need, tell
Right.
us so that we can provide."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that comes to the next one, right? Of being in our solar plexus and that, like, being able to stand up and be in your
Right.
power and, self-esteem and confidence and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can start to see, like, wow, how they're all related. And if you don't have that foundation of safety, it'll jam up everything else.
Absolutely.
And
That's
that's where
right.
it's like, that's where you have to create that emotional stability within yourself. Because if not, everything, everything gets jacked up. And so, yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah,
And some
that's
people
so
have a very, like, dominant solar plexus to maybe again, there's
mm,
always the extremes, right? And I've talked about the pendulum
right.
before, whereas some people, it's like they're very much maybe in their masculine energy and, like, very, like, need power, right?
Yeah.
Versus, like, finding the balance of that between their feminine energy. It's a whole thing. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that solar plexus is a a tricky one. Not a
yeah.
tricky, that's not the right word, but it was a tricky one for me because
Same.
that whole stand
Still
into your
working on
power.
that one.
Yeah, me too. Like it's an everyday thing and
For real.
very connected with that throat chakra of being
Uh-huh.
able to
Uh-huh.
speak your truth. And this is what I need. And as simple as like, no, I don't want to eat that for supper. Like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to go there. Uh,
Yeah.
so it can cause major digestive issues. If
Yes.
you cannot stand in your power and speak your truth, I tell you, your digestive system is probably
Yep.
suffering.
Yeah. And that was, again, like, before I had started the whole supplement thing that I had talked about before, that was why my gut was a freaking mess. It was
Hmm.
awful, like,
Hmm.
absolutely awful. And that's why. Like, when
Yeah.
I look back, again, I was a pretty healthy eater. And it
Yeah.
was like when stress at work, like, hit the fan, like, everything. Like, I had gained 10 pounds, like, just like that. But digestively, I was having literal pain where I'd be curled up on the floor. But I
Hmm.
was still exercising. I was still drinking my water. Like, on paper, that's why I said to the doctor, I'm like, explain this to me. Because on paper, I am your perfect patient. What else is going on? Well, of course, they just wanted to give me Prevacid. They wanted to give me meds. And I was like,
Of
no,
course.
no, like get to the root of this. And I didn't know anything about this kind of work at that point. So,
Mhm.
but I knew this is something more. And then when they found out, like, oh, maybe you have a sensitivity to nuts. And I was like, I didn't just magically develop a food sensitivity at the age of 32. Like, this is deeper. Again, so that was like my first
Right.
inkling that this is something deeper, something going on. But again, I had no idea about suppressed emotions or impact of energy, like any of that at that time. But I knew I need to heal. I just thought I just need to heal my physical body. I didn't know all of the other components that went into that. And yeah, that's what kind of got me on that path. I was like, oh, how do I heal my gut? And that was what led me on that path. That's what started that whole thing. But really, it's like what impacted my gut from the first place?
Right.
Well, you're people pleaser.
Yeah.
That's what
Exactly.
impacted you. So
Yeah.
that's where,
I
like, when I tell people when they're so quick to jump to the like the physical things, it's like don't miss the
yes.
emotional and the energetic component because that's really what it is. It's just
Yeah.
manifesting in
So
physical stuff.
yeah. At 16, I was collapsing in pain with stomach issues, and
Yeah.
they're just like you. Just ate super healthy, I exercise, same thing. And it's continued to grow.
Yeah.
But
Well, and
yeah.
I think this is a really, really important highlight for parents is if your kids are
Hmm.
having, can't explain it, don't know why this is happening, like there may be something that they don't feel safe expressing, something that they are suppressing, and it is now getting your attention. And I was actually just talking to someone. She was, there's three girls. She was the middle child, never felt seen growing up.
Mm,
What do you know? She eventually developed celiac disease. Well, now she's getting their attention because now they got to take her to the hospital and get this figured out. Attention's attention. Like,
yeah.
why else would that just happen? Nothing. What in her environment? Like, why do you just,
Just all of a sudden.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. The energy is everything. And it really, and for those who've listened to the first episode, I talked about how
yeah,
sick I got. And it really was all
yeah,
blockage of energy,
yeah, yeah,
if I were to put it in a nutshell. And it made me very, very, very ill until I
yeah.
started healing and clearing some of that energy and healing
Right.
some of that deeper stuff. Yeah.
Well, and that's where, again, like even doing the work that I'm doing now, where I'm like, I can't just be the dietitian that gives a meal plan because it's like, yes, we need to tend to our physical body in that way and help it heal in those ways. But you cannot miss this component. Like, I cannot work
Right.
with you if you're not willing to, at some point, look at this. Otherwise, I am doing you a massive disservice. And like, I morally and soulfully cannot do that anymore because I know, like, I can't ignore that because it's just going to come back up if we're not actually processing that stuff. And no amount of perfect meal plan or macros are going to fix that.
Mhm.
So,
I had
yeah,
this similar thing with when I was just doing kinesiology, and I had patients and they kept coming back like the same thing as I'm like, but there's a deeper issue here. You don't just keep re-injuring this for no reason, or you don't keep having this ailment for no reason. There is a much deeper issue. And I started seeing the connection with people with similar traumas, had the similar
yeah,
physical issue. And I just couldn't just it
right,
felt like Band-Aid fix all the time. And I couldn't do that anymore. And so now,
right,
yeah, I have to incorporate this.
yeah,
It's yeah.
yeah. Well, then coming up to our good old heart chakra. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I think everyone can probably think of something within their life where their emotional needs weren't met. And again,
Mhm.
especially, and this is where it's like our ego will create stories growing up that, like, maybe a parent didn't love you or didn't meet your needs and all this stuff. But again, when you like, but they had a blocked heart chakra too. So they might have had
Yeah.
a lot of love trapped in there. They just didn't have access to it. I can think of
Yeah.
people in my life where it's like, I wanted all of the love. Like I knew intuitively it was there, but they didn't have access to it. And so again, as a kid, like I wanted all of it. But then when I could see like, oh, they're only have access to a quarter of it. And they are actually giving me all that they have access to. But I needed so much more, right? And so it
Yeah.
feels like neglect. It feels like
It's
abandonment because you're not, it's like, but there's something missing here. And you know it intuitively as a kid. And so if we as parents have our own blocked heart chakra, your kids are going to pick up on that because they are going to want you to be emotionally vulnerable and available. And when you're not, it feels like something's missing. And why don't they love me as much as so and so? Or why don't they love me for me? Or why can't they show me that they love me? I can't tell you how many people I have talked to that said, like, their parents were never able to tell them that they love them. Like, that is a
Mhm.
blocked heart chakra because you
Oh
know there's
boy.
love in there. Like, you know it, but
Yeah.
they can't
They
express
can't
it.
express it.
That's how blocked they are. And so to be able to free someone of that story of like, oh, they did love me, they just didn't know how to express it. And maybe they found a different way. Maybe it was through like being there at their sporting events or their maybe they showed their own ways or their way of giving love was like acts of service, but you're like, I don't receive it that way. So that's not filling my cup. And so
Mhm.
it just gets really like convoluted and your ego will create these massive stories, but really it's like, no, because they had a blocked heart chakra and they weren't able to give love in the way that I needed to receive it. And again, this is where that self-love, it's gotta come from you.
It's
It's
gotta come from
gotta come
within.
from you. And that has been the freaking journey I've been on.
Yeah.
Oh crap, I gotta find this within myself. Because if I
Yeah.
when I didn't, when I outsourced it to everybody else,
Mhm.
oh, that was rough. Real rough. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of I shared this with you with my dad.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh.
and my dad and I knew it was love, but, um,
Yeah.
probably didn't get it how I wanted, for many years.
Yeah.
My brothers had different attention than I did, where I was a girl, he was a boy, they were boys, and it was just, he told me he loved me, but I didn't get the attention I wanted. I didn't get how I needed it. And, um, my father's been pretty sick with some heart issues, and a little while ago, I was here visiting and helping him and my mom through this, and had some really beautiful moments with
Mm.
him. And my dad started sharing his
Yeah.
story
Oh.
as a kid, um, that he had never shared with anybody. So he'd been holding this on holding on to this his whole life, buried deep down. He lost his mom when he was 11 years old, and she died giving birth. And as she was leaving the house to go give birth, she wanted to say goodbye. And my dad was, he was a kid, he was a boy, and he just wanted to play. And he was like, he was too busy, he
Yeah.
was too busy to say goodbye. In his mind, she was coming right back, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Oh.
she she sadly, unfortunately had passed giving birth. And he's been holding on to that his whole life and feeling guilt his whole entire life for not taking the time to say goodbye. Yeah. And that was just a little snippet of the stuff that he went through. And then his father, at that time, they didn't do caregiving, and so
Right.
he had to find a wife. And he would tell my dad he wished he would have placed him because he just couldn't take care of him. Uh, and then when he did find a wife, he was sent to live in the basement, which was like a dungeon. And he doesn't even remember his
Of course
childhood
he
because he
didn't. He had to
basically
dissociate out of his
he was
entire
associated
childhood.
to survive, and he felt no love. He felt like, his
And
dad
why
just,
wouldn't
of
you harden your heart in that? Because it's like
course.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's ego. Like, I did what I had to do because
Oh,
looking at that, that is
mhm.
incredibly painful in so many
Yeah.
aspects. Like, of course I had to harden your heart. Of course I had to build walls
Yeah.
and things around it. But then you
Yeah.
see how it's impacted his physical health and as an adult, like, oh my, and it's heartbreaking. Like,
It really is heartbreaking, and he's had nothing but heart issues and his
ugh,
whole life. But now I have a whole other understanding. I never held it against him, but I have an even
yes.
greater understanding how he doesn't know how to show love in
He
the
had no
way that
example of healthy love,
I
no
know
example of that.
example. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I have a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
And um but it just really, to me, that just explained everything, his heart issues and the
Right?
way he loved. And Oh man. Yeah, so that goes to show.
Well, and it was because you allowed yourself to have a vulnerable moment with him,
Mm.
which gave him permission to share something that happened, what, 60 years ago? And by doing that, it unlocked so many puzzle pieces for you to find peace and find healing within that story. But also to give him that, like that release to be able to
Mhm.
finally share that and express that because you
Mhm.
created this safe space. And so it's like sometimes we have to be willing to ask the questions and like be willing to have a hard conversation with someone because maybe that's exactly what they need and they don't know they need it. And so we always try to avoid it. We try to tiptoe around those conversations when really that might be the greatest gift you've ever given your dad.
Mhm.
And what a beautiful gift for you to
Yeah.
really see him in that as a 11-year-old little boy. And the same thing with my dad when we were 11. And that's when we were made
Right.
that parallel. We're like, wait, your dad was 11, my dad. Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, and I so many people have commented on the episode of my dad about like what a beautiful gift to be able to help him process that. And it's like, because I was willing to sit in that with him
Yeah.
and give him space to feel safe, right? Because it's everything, right? You feel safe with
Mhm.
someone
Yeah.
that allows them to feel their emotion and their sacral. They can like stand in their power, open up their heart, speak their truth. Like it just now it opens up everything. And that's where I was
Everything.
saying, like, that's how you have these clearing conversations. They clear your energy
Mhm.
simply by speaking your truth, sharing your story. And that's why I love this platform and helping people share their story because it's healing in itself just to share your story
Yeah.
because you're unlocking all of it. You're clearing your energy.
Mhm. And in that moment, my father, who never cries because you don't show emotion, he was crying and
Oh,
just releasing. You could see the release. Like it was so beautiful and emotional, but he didn't judge himself for it, which was
yeah.
that was such a gift in itself that he just allowed himself
Yeah.
to do that. And you could see, for me, being able to see energy, but I could just see all the energy shift and he just
Yeah.
get lighter and just like it's like he could take a big deep breath all of
Oh.
a sudden, and it was
Oh, I
just
felt that just now, like,
yeah.
oh, yeah,
But it really is. Having those conversations
yeah.
can be so healing. It's just creating that space.
Well, and I love that you mentioned, like, feeling safe in the emotion
Mm.
because ego can quickly swoop in when someone's
Mhm.
crying and be like, "Oh, oh, gotta shut this
Nope.
down." Like, "No, no, 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 let it out. Like,
It's
let it
yeah,
out." That is
yeah,
it's just another way to express emotion, and
yeah,
it's not a sign of weakness. To me, I see it as an absolute strength to be able to express emotion in that way. But, whew, man. But yeah, you can
mhm,
see, like, by him being able to open his heart and speak his truth, like, that's opening up the throat, and you had given examples earlier about how that can happen and how we block our own throat chakra, and that, again, is something, like, I'm constantly working on. Even though I have a podcast, when it comes to certain things,
yeah,
I shut down, and it
mhm,
absolutely relates to my solar plexus, especially when it comes to the work that I'm having to do now of, like, getting out there and, like, looking for partnerships and sponsors, like, it is so triggering, and that is absolutely where it shuts everything down
mhm,
because I have like, worthiness wound, issues around money, like, not feeling safe there, and so it literally will block everything from becoming out really, really intentional, and so that's a place where I'm still working on that. Like,
mhm.
oh,
Oh, yes, I know, I
yeah.
have aim.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about, like, as we're moving up, and we'll probably have to I don't know how long we've been talking, but
Oh my gosh, I know, that's the problem with you and I, we
I
can start.
know, for real, you guys. One time she messaged me, she's like, "It'll just be a couple minutes." I'm like, "Zoe, you know damn right well we don't ever talk for just a couple minutes." It's like, "Oh, it's been an hour and a half. Oh, it's been 2 hours." So,
Yeah,
I do now that we've gotten this far, like,
right.
talking about our third eye and, like, when that's blocked, like, how do you see that with people or even yourself?
Oh, well, for me, with my intuition, then that starts getting really blocked, and if I were to go in to do a reading with somebody or a session with somebody, I can't receive, and
Yeah.
so just in general, I'm not receiving information, I'm not seeing the things clearly, the messages that are all there,
Mhm.
My mom, she's making me faces in the window.
Oh,
Right? I just looked over and there she was going,
oh, so cute. I love.
see, that no, this is a perfect example of third eye being open because that was just
Yeah.
I just noticing that it's
Uh-huh.
right. It's like the seeing the feathers, seeing the angel numbers, seeing all those things.
Yep.
Had I been closed off and just in my own, like I would have missed that. And it was just kind of a really cute thing seeing. She's so
Yeah.
playful. It's still, and
I love that. I love it.
it's a really funny little moment. Um, um, sorry, now I've lost my
Oh, but
train
you
of
were
thought.
saying like because you notice, and that's so much of what that third eye is, right? It's just like being intuitive. And we all, everybody, when we're
Everybody is.
born, a kid, babies are, that's all they got. That's all they got coming into the world is their
Mhm.
intuition.
Yeah.
So again, they know when to cry, when they need something. Like you
Mhm.
notice like how curious and creative they are. Like babies are so intuitive, but we start to lose that because
Yeah.
it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way, or you don't feel sad, or you shouldn't feel this way, or there's so many ways that we get disconnected from our
Mm.
intuition. And I shared a little bit about that last week and how I thought when I started to make sense of like, why am I always asking everyone else for input? Why can I never make a decision for myself? It's like you don't know how to trust yourself. You're outsourcing everything to everyone
Yeah.
because you don't have that knowing within yourself. We
And
are
that gets
all
shut
being
down
guided. Yeah.
so easily as a kid.
Yeah.
Just moments where I use this example with my daughters, or you see your parent crying and like oh my gosh, or you're feeling something like your parents are feeling off and you go up and like, is everything okay? Oh yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Right.
the
No,
world
no, no.
is trying
Tell
to,
them
yeah.
it's
Yeah. So
okay.
then you're like, oh, I perceived that wrong. I guess, okay, guess I'm not,
And that
it's
is,
that.
yes, that is just
You're
it. And that's where it's like, even though you had a pretty good childhood, when you grew up in the Leave It to Beaver family, and obviously there was stress and stuff going on, but if no one was ever talking about it, you felt it, but it was never validated. And so that's when we start like, well, okay, I guess I was wrong then. No, you weren't. You were absolutely right. And so
right.
I don't hide how I'm feeling with my, I don't expect them to make me feel better. I'm very clear about that. I told Ari the other
Right,
day, I'm like,
exactly.
yeah, like I'm feeling the feels. My energy is off. You're absolutely right. But that is not your responsibility to
That's right.
fix,
Yeah.
to shift. That is on me. But I had to say that to her because I could tell she was wanting to like help me and take, I'm like, no, 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 you do not take that on. That is my responsibility. But awesome that you noticed. You're right. My energy is off. Like, yeah. And
Mhm.
actually, it's a very random story, but we were back home at my parents' this last weekend and we were like riding around on the mules and stuff. And my sister was in the one ahead of us and she had on these earrings and it was like this tiny, like gold, almost looked like a little rope, right? And it was just like put through her ear. Well, as we're driving around, we literally drove around my parents' huge pond, up the gravel roads, and she lost her earring. We're like, yeah, that's gone. There's no way you're finding that, right?
Right.
And so that was Friday night that happened. And all of a sudden, Saturday afternoon, Aria comes up to her. She's like, hey, I found your earring just in the driveway. Like somehow she just happened to look down. I mean,
Mm.
you should see the picture of it. Like, there's no way anyone should have found that. I was like,
Wow.
and I saw it right then and there. I'm like, Aria, like that's an example of that. Like you just you're
Yep.
present, you're in tune. Something's telling you, hey,
Mm.
look down,
Look down.
look down. Boom, there it is. Like, it's stuff like
Mm.
that. Stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, if you're blocked, you're missing
You're
all of
missing
that.
all of it.
And you
Yeah.
guys, if you follow me on social media, you see how many signs and things I see. I was gonna say on the daily, but it's literally like every other minute. And I
Mhm.
love that because that is truly what has guided me through this journey and trusting that even though there's been a lot of change and a lot of hard stuff, that was always my guiding light was that when I found those signs, it was like, keep going. We got you. Just keep going, keep going. So that helps a ton.
Uh,
So,
Absolutely.
and then
Yeah.
last but not least, our crown. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
With that one's a
Yeah. Yeah.
Tami gets these nice little tingles when hers is
Yeah.
or it's a no, it's not a tingle, but it's a
Oh yeah. I definitely like have a
we all
jolt where I
see
feel
it
like
now when she gets a jolt.
I'm like, it looks like I'm getting struck by lightning is when I get
Yes.
the downloads and the hits.
The
Yeah.
downloads. But that's also very much intuition and
Mhm.
how we receive and trusting what is coming in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to discern with ego, but
Yes.
it's trusting that guidance and all that inner guidance and
Yeah.
and what's coming from within.
Yes.
And when that's blocked, that's when you're stray off, way off the path. Oh, scared me.
Are you okay in
Sorry, somebody jarred the
there?
door as they did that. Startled me. Okay, we're good. I'm sorry.
Back.
I'm in the hospital, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not without an
We knew
interruption.
we were taking our chances here, but
Yeah.
yeah. But it was one of those like, we're gonna seize this opportunity to be in the energy. And that's kind of, I
Absolutely.
talked a little bit about that last week of just, it's when you like you have that idea, that thought
Mm,
that just won't leave, right? But it
yeah,
feels impossible. Like I could never do that. But it's like, but you have that idea for a reason.
for a reason.
Like God didn't plant that seed for nothing. Yet your ego has told you a million trillion reasons why you could never do that thing, but you have that thought and idea for a reason. And when you start to, again, I was kind of talking about like try it on energetically, like put yourself in the energy of it, remove ego in that moment and just like allow yourself to sit in that. But it's like these are the moments where like getting outside, like if you are constantly distracted, you don't get the downloads. And that's where it's like
That's
you have to be intentional. Everyone that I work with, I'm like, how are you taking time for you? I don't care. It it some people can't do an hour or whatever, but can you give yourself 5 minutes to just be quiet with yourself, to
Yep.
stand outside, to in the shower, to just let the
Mm,
water come down on you and just be quiet, like because it's in those moments where you hear things. It's in your hobbies. It's when you're channeling your freaking inner child. Generally, is because that's when you're feeling joy, and all of a sudden you get
yeah,
the idea. So people who are painting or singing or dancing or doing that kind of stuff, all of a sudden it's when they get like the best ideas because you've
absolutely.
opened up that channel. But if you
Hmm.
don't ever do those things that bring you joy, you literally block it.
Yeah.
And so when
Those
you're
I
wondering why things aren't working out for you in your life, God and the universe are like, yo, you know how much I've been trying to send down and you are literally blocking because you don't take any time for yourself? Like, that's on you. Don't be
Mhm.
blaming us.
I used to get my best downloads, like, working out
Yes,
or
same.
rock climbing,
Yes,
because I'm doing stuff I love and I'm moving my body and I'm clearing energy. I'm doing all these things, but really I'm just doing something that really fills me
yeah,
up and I would get my best downloads.
yeah,
You don't have to be meditating like
yes,
Buddha.
right.
Meditation in all kinds of forms, but exercising is
It's, yeah,
meditative for me.
yes,
Rock
same.
climbing is meditative for me.
Well, and I think
Mhm.
that was when I finally made that connection because I was always like, oh, I'm a terrible meditator. Like, I don't levitate. I don't like get these massive downloads. Like, I couldn't get out of my freaking head. So I kind of
Right.
like just gave it away and like poo pooed it. But then I realized like when I'm out for a run or when I'm dancing or like,
Mhm.
oh, that is a form of
Yeah.
meditation. Oh, or when I go
Yeah.
paddleboarding. And here's the thing, it's like I know people can joke, be like, oh, must be nice to go on your paddleboard in the middle of the day. Like, that's work for me. That's
Yeah.
work because if I don't do stuff like that, I don't get the downloads. I don't get the ideas. I don't have that creative flow. And that's so much of my work. So I have to start to think of those things as literally the most important part of my workday is having some sort of practice of how, so working out for me in the morning, it has very little to do with actual exercise. It is for that kind of stuff because I'm clearing my energy right away and I'm opening up those channels so that way when I do start work, I'm like open, right? But if you're never clearing that, yeah, you're starting your work day just like, ugh. It's a terrible sound.
So no, but it's true, and nobody wants to start their day like that.
Yeah,
I mean, you're blocking yourself for the whole entire day.
the whole entire day. And you wonder why your day sucks and you dread work.
Yeah.
And but if man, if you were to get out even just before you walked into the building, just to stand outside for 30 seconds and take a deep breath, like start there.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't have 30 minutes to go for a walk outside. Go for 5.
Yeah.
But that was when I did that outside every day. We talked about in episode 2. I mean, that was life-saving in so many ways, but it was that. It gave me that was my time to truly connect and feel guided and supported of like out of what I was going through. But without that, that was wow, like that cleared energy, but that opened up, gave me the reassurance and all of that stuff. And so it's so important. Like you have to find those creative moments and outlets where you can open that up. And it oftentimes, like I said, is when you're channeling your inner child, that tends to
That's
come through. And it
yep.
looks different for everybody. So don't feel like, oh, I
Exactly.
gotta
Yeah.
meditate or oh, I gotta do this. Like it's whatever brings you joy is probably the easiest
Mhm.
way to connect.
It could even be drinking your cup of coffee
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
I don't drink coffee, but, like, just being mindful
Mm,
and, like, oh, you know, how it makes you feel and just taking those moments to just enjoy it.
yeah.
Just
Well,
in that little moment.
I shared that. I don't remember what episode. I think it was like your inner child is sabotaging your weight loss. I was sharing the story of the woman who gave up her coffee because it had too much sugar. And I was
Oh.
like, bring that coffee back and enjoy every minute of it. Because that was it. That was the time. It was the only time she was sitting quietly in her car was when she savored her coffee.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't give two shits how much sugar it's coming from a dietitian. Like, if it's helping you connect, it's
Yes,
worth
that is
it.
more
And I
important. Yeah.
guarantee your body's going to process that so much differently than if you were to have it any other sugar, but being stressed and bogged down, like because our bodies process the things we eat very differently based on our vibrations. And so, and even food has
Mhm.
its own vibration. And so
Oh
that
my
could be a
gosh.
whole other episode. So,
That's a whole other we could
yeah,
go on days
yeah.
on that one. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, you
Yep.
guys, I don't know if I mentioned this now. We've been talking forever, but yeah, Zoe and I literally came on. We're like, maybe we'll talk about this and that. And then here we go. So,
Yeah. We
this is
just here we are.
this is Zoe and I and our unscriptedness. And so hopefully I feel like that it turned out to be a pretty cool episode. So hopefully you
I'm
guys got something out
hoping
of
so.
it.
I think so.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's too is it's just being open to this too. And I know sometimes like the word chakra or an energy, like that kind of stuff can like make people uncomfortable. But like when you really sit with like the things we talked about in the real life examples, just sit with that. Call it whatever
Yeah.
you want. Call it. Energy is energy.
And you can't deny it. You know, when you walk in a room and things feel heavy, everybody can sense energy.
Yeah.
So you call it what you want, but it's
Yeah.
there.
It's there. So
There.
oh well, Zoe.
On that note, Tammy, I just want to say thank you because this is also was really good for me too because
Mhm.
things are really heavy here and just after just talking and talking with a friend and it just it also helps ground and lighten things up for me and shifts my energy too. So that's another little, I guess, trick is just, you know, being with somebody with high vibe
Mhm.
helps.
Well, you have been that for me many, many a times. And so, and I love that you, again, we both kind of thought like, well, maybe this isn't the best time, but we both kind of also were like,
Well,
who said? Like maybe, because again, it could be like, well, I shouldn't. But if it
right.
felt right, then we were like, if it feels right, let me know. We'll hop on.
Yeah.
And you're right because you're operating in your gifts. So of course it's like
Mhm.
bringing you up because this is your element and your gift is sharing and talking about this stuff and healing and you're helping so many people heal while you're also like in it and helping your family heal and so hopefully this is pouring back into you. So feel all of
Absolutely.
our love from all of the
Oh, I
listeners
feel
to
it.
the
Thank
family
you.
and yeah, I'm sending your entire family and especially your grandpa so much
Thank
love. So
you. Thank you.
all right. Well, I will let you go
Thank
and
you.
I will probably check in with you later today.
Yeah. I have no doubts. We'll be talking soon.
All right, my friend. I
All
will
right.
I will let you go.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for just all the love and sitting through that episode with Zoe and I and sending so much love to her and her family. And yeah, hopefully this episode kind of helped you move some energy in a way or honor parts of you or parts of your family or understood certain things that have happened in your life a little bit more. And but this is the kind of work that her and I just absolutely love to do and to help connect those dots. And so at any time, if you ever want help processing some of those things or making sense of it and being able to connect the dots of your family story so you can find some of that peace and healing too, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know I'm always a free discovery call away and would be more than happy to connect with you and help work through some of that stuff because you don't have to do that alone. And like she said, sometimes it's very healing to be in the energy of someone that can sit in that with you. And so I would be honored to be that person for you. And so Thank you so much for all the time that you guys took today to listen to this. And please, 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 as I send you on your way, is find a way to connect with your inner child in whatever way. We talked about those different energy centers of, whether your inner child needs to feel safe, whether they need to feel their feels, whether they need to stand in their power and find their voice, or whether they need to feel love from you, whether they need to sing and speak their truth and open their throat, or maybe you just need to listen and trust, right? And so there are all these things that you can do with your inner child to connect. And so I'm really hopeful that, or I'm giving you homework to do that after this episode. So thank you all so much for your time and your energy and your heart in today's episode. We'll see you next week.